My name's Gillian Paxton, and I'm with the Cairns Institute at James Cook University. Thank you. And today I'm here to talk about perceptions of COTS and COTS management. And I'm kind of presenting on behalf of my colleagues, which is my get out of jail free card when I don't know what I'm talking about. Great. Crown of thorns starfish, or what we call COTS, are effective coral predators that are endemic to coral reefs across the Indo-Pacific. While they typically occur in very low densities, their populations can surge dramatically and create significant damage for coral reefs. Outbreaks have been recorded in the Great Barrier Reef since 1962, and programs to monitor outbreaks and cull COTS when they occur have become an established part of the reef's management and is recognised under the Reef 2050 plan. While COTS management typically attracts little controversy, community perceptions of COTS and COTS management is not well understood. But with new methods for COTS control being explored under the COTS Control Innovation Program, or what we call CCIP, it's become imperative to build this understanding so that novel management strategies can be designed and implemented in a way that's responsive to community values and interests. So to build this understanding, researchers at the Cairns Institute are drawing on insights gained through the Regional Deep Dive, which is a comprehensive body of qualitative social research that we've been conducting as part of the Reef Restoration and Adaptation Program, or what we call RAP. The deep dive aims to gain a kind of in-depth understanding of reef communities, the ways they imagine and make sense of the reef's future, and their responses to novel reef management actions and interventions. It uses an open-ended interview format that aims to provoke deep and intimate dialogue. We've conducted 117 interviews so far with the communities groups that you can see outlined there. And 90 of these contain accounts of crown of thorns starfish. And so today I just want to discuss some of the insights we've gained from these accounts and what this might mean for the design and implementation of socially responsible novel COTS management strategies. So one of the most crucial insights that we're seeing across the deep dive is that when asked to imagine the future of the reef and describe what it could and should look like, the overwhelming majority of participants, whether they be scientists, fishers, farmers, you name it, find it really hard to form cohesive answers. Instead, what we observe is that participants become torn and conflicted as they weigh up or grapple between the multiple possibilities for the reef. And these multiple possibilities include the possibilities offered through the pragmatic use of technological and scientific innovation and intervention to help the reef, the possibilities created by fortifying community practices of protection and care for the reef, and the possibilities imagined in the radical transformation of collective political and social systems responsible for reef problems. When it comes to COTS embedded within these narratives, we see a similar tension or grappling around defining COTS as a problem in the reef. On the one hand, participants have no problem defining COTS pragmatically as something that presents a problem in the reef because of the damage they do to coral and to the reef's ecological capital. And this is due to their propensity to predate on coral and periodically surge into outbreaks. Many, in aligning with this, many draw on their first-hand experiences of witnessing the impacts of COTS outbreaks. And they also include them as they discuss, the litany of compounding threats that are creating a very precarious future for the reef. But at the same time, and often in the same sentence, participants also hesitate about applying blanket definitions of COTS as problematic. And we often see them kind of moderating their claims about COTS, and they do this by doing things like describing how COTS are endemic to reef ecologies, and that means they have a moral right to belong in reef ecologies, discussing how they might be unfairly scapegoated in order to absolve humans of their ultimate responsibility for reef threats. And how the threats they pose are relatively innocuous when we compare them to the kind of ubiquitous threat of climate change. And we also saw deep dive participants grapple between these pragmatic and ethical issues as they formed responses to the prospect of novel COTS management. As they have evaluated and speculated on the acceptability and desirability of novel COTS management strategies, they typically gave consideration to 3 key pragmatic questions. First, they considered whether the COTS management strategy would actually materially help the reef and reef ecologies. And this involved thinking about how the strategy might create benefits for reefs by lessening the damage that COTS does to coral, but also conversely thinking about the risks involved in interfering with reef ecologies and natural cycles. They considered whether the proposed management seemed sensible and well-informed, with prospective management typically evaluated in terms of its perceived practicality and its feasibility, the soundness of its knowledge base, its efficiency in terms of resources and labour, its ability to address what participants understood as the root causes of COTS outbreaks, and its ability to anticipate and control potential risks. And finally, they considered whether management would create social benefits. And we saw this a lot in the interviews. We saw discussions of the multiple forms of community capital that's created through COTS management. And this includes economic benefits to tourism and other reef-related industries, but also vocational opportunities created in terms of building regional capacities and skills, and benefits in terms of enhanced community connections with the reef. But on the other hand, it also involved considering some of the potential inequities that people faced gaining access to those forms of capital, and some of the difficulties that particular communities might face in accessing those. As well as giving consideration to its pragmatics, people also formed responses to novel COTS management, giving consideration to its ethical aspects. They discussed the prospect of novel COTS, as they discussed the prospect of novel COTS management, participants considered whether proposed strategies, were morally right and socially fair. They acknowledged, for example, how more efficient and effective COTS management would create benefits for reefs, and correct imbalances. So they thought about that, but they also considered whether it was actually right to problematize an endemic species and interfere in the reef's natural cycles and processes. Participants also considered novel COTS management within their broader visions for the reef's future, and particularly in terms of the systemic and social and political transformations they imagined necessary to solve the reef's underlying problems. And this involved thinking about how COTS management might actually enhance or limit public awareness of reef issues, and again, either enhance or distract from human accountability and responsibility for reef problems, and enhancing and limiting, again, cultures of care and respect for the reef. So let's push this up. So in a nutshell, community dialogue carried out by the regional deep dive has highlighted that community perceptions of COTS and COTS management are far from straightforward. Communities do not adopt fixed or firm positions about COTS management. Instead, they engage in a far more fluid consideration of its pragmatic benefits and practicality, and its potential for creating better and fairer futures for the reef. So what do we do with these insights? It's all very complex. So I want to finish off by outlining a framework that my colleague Henry Bartolet has developed to apply these insights, to apply the results of the deep dive, and to help us think about the social license to operate of COTS management in the Great Barrier Reef. Now, as social scientists, I know we're all kind of a bit cautious about the term social license to operate. And it's a term that's typically used to refer to a level of kind of tacit acceptance and support that exists in communities in relation to proposed projects, typically mining projects. However, in the light of these more fluid negotiations that we're observing in the deep dive, I want to understand, or we want to understand, social license. Thank you. I'm really ahead of time, so you can thank me later. We want to understand social license in COPS management. It's not so much about evaluating existing levels of community acceptance around COTS management, but as a set of categories or principles for enhancing the points of engagement between communities and COTS managers. So what Henry has done with this framework is first clearly articulated the primacy of traditional owner rights and responsibilities in COTS management. These come, unlike the concerns of other reef communities, the inclusion of traditional owner rights and responsibilities precedes any consideration of social licence, because it's fundamental to the design and implementation of COTS management, full stop. But then, based on the results of the deep dive, Henry's outlined then 4 critical areas, or what we call engagement points, for building social licence in COTS management. These are not areas defined by a lack of community acceptance, but areas of ethical and pragmatic nuance and complexity. And enhancing the social licence for COTS management then becomes not a matter of establishing consensus or support, but enhancing the quality of the ongoing dialogue and exchange taking place within these areas. So that's me done. Thank you.